Before we say welcome to another episode of the Back Catalogue podcast, is this
I'll put the volume down.
Okay,
I'll put the volume down.
We wanted to welcome you to a free trial at the Patreon. Look, the link's in the bio, the link's wherever you can see it. Come join us at the Patreon. There's free content over there for 7 days if you do the free trial.
And you can watch them all in 7 days.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of content, so you're going to have to be going through it to get it all done in 7 days.
But there's not like, 1,800 hours of content.
No, there's just hundreds of hours.
Because that's about how many hours in a week, in 7 days.
So that's true. And this is the thing that you can also do. You can go over there, and if you like it, you can stay for $2 a month.
And if you don't like it,
I mean, I can't help you. But I can say welcome to another episode of the Back Catalogue podcast. This is the podcast where we are in the yabba. And by we, I mean me, Appa. I'm a co-host / co-founder, Vincent. We dive into the streaming service. We tell you, the listener and the viewer, what is worth it and what is not. Vincent, we're here.
we're here. This is a special podcast because this is, if you're on the Patreon, you can actually suggest movies.
Yeah.
Right. And no one watches these. So, that's not really a selling point. I probably shouldn't have said that, but no one watches these. So we can say whatever we want.
Well, I mean,
I don't know where I was going with that.
I mean,
point.
people do watch it because this movie right here was recommended by a member of the Patreon, and not only just a member, an active member.
An active member. So shout out you. We can shout out names.
Yeah, of course. We can
David. Shout out David.
Shout out David.
I mean, no one knows. David's a common name.
David could be anyone.
David could be you. David.
And you could be David if you go up to the Patreon and just get in the chats. Tell us what you want to see. But today we're doing Waking Fright, 1971's very own.
We're doing ausploitation April.
It's because it's Australia. We're we're a bit back.
Yeah, the time
compared
zones.
to it's all time zones here. But let me tell you what this has got. I'm going to give you with some facts, then we'll get into it. Right. So this got 7.6 out of 10 on the IMDb. It's got the 97% on the Rotten Tomatoes.
Hold on, 7%.
97%.
97%. What is it on IMDb? I wasn't listening.
7.6 out of 10 on the IMDb. It's
then
97% on Flicks. But I think they just use Rotten Tomatoes scoring.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the synopsis. We'll get into this. I could give you the budget if you want it.
Give me the budget.
All right. The budget is $700,000 to $800,000.
Jeez.
I mean, you got Donald Pleasance in this piece, and we'll talk about him later. After finishing up the school term in a remote outback town, teacher John Grant, aka Jack, that's my man's Jack, looks forward to spending his holiday with his girlfriend in Sydney. I'm just going to leave it at that. There's a lot more, but I'm not reading it all.
Is that the Google synopsis or is that the IMDb synopsis?
This is the Google synopsis, and it's literally every bit of the...
oh, okay.
Should we just say it? Because it's every bit of the movie.
Just say it. Just say the synopsis.
But John gets waylaid in a mining town where a gambling spree leaves him completely broke. He quickly falls in with hard-drinking locals who constantly ply him with alcohol and force him to participate in gruesome kangaroo hunts. Disgusted, John tries to hitchhike out of town, and when that fails, begins to contemplate suicide.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's the movie.
That's the movie. That's the movie.
I mean, they are doing that whole movie. And let me tell you some facts about this movie. This movie was lost for many years. Lost. Because what had happened was there was a couple companies that, had the rights to this movie, and both of those, much like Jack, aka John, went broke.
They went broke.
So there was just no distributing rights for this movie. It all fell just into nothingness. It was almost a figment of people's imaginations until it was found in 2006 in just a warehouse in a box that said to be destroyed, and there was just all these things of film, and that was Waking Fright. So
why would it be to be destroyed?
That's what was just going to happen because it was part of their old distributing company. So they're like, no one owns this now.
Yeah,
this is just to be destroyed. And then in 2009, it was re-released. Okay. Waking Fright. Dude, I was saying that a lot yesterday.
Jeez, I don't know. Usually, that's not a thing they say in the movie. No. That's just something that you say.
But it's because in the Halloween movie, evil dies tonight.
Oh, that's right.
And Donald Pleasance, who's in this movie, who's the doctor, he is from the original Halloween series. So I was just crossing the streams.
He's the doctor.
He's the guy with the beard.
Yeah, the doctor.
The doctor. Doc. Yeah. But let's just get into this movie.
You know when someone's called the doctor, you know they're not an actual doctor.
I mean, especially if they're like just pouring beers on their heads and like laughing with tails on their eyes.
So this movie, let me tell you. Anyway, Wake in Fright.
So Wake in Fright, this is the start of the ausploitation era.
So when did it start? When did ausploitation?
1971. No, I don't know if it was 1971, but it was in the early 70s. And Wake in Fright was like the one that kicked it off. It was the one where Americans saw it and they were like, "Is this Australia?"
And they woke up in fright.
They woke up in fright. And they were like, "If this is Australia, I got to learn more about Australia." And there were some frustrations by a lot of people because they're like, this is not Australia. Like we do drink beers and play tour, but like we don't do it to the point in which we have guns to our heads at the end of the movie.
Yeah, well, that's because he's not an Australian.
I mean, if he's not Australian, this guy's British.
That's right. So that the Americans are looking at that and going, "That could be me." Australians, nah, that's not us. It's not us, but it could be you.
It could be you, and it's the heat.
It's the heat.
It's all the heat. So, you seen issues over there?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Is something not recorded?
I don't know.
I mean, this is the Wake in Fright. This might never be released.
This might never be released. No, it's all good.
Much like the Wake in Fright movie.
I was just moving things, and it's like, that wasn't working.
So, this movie sort of kicked off the ausploitation era, and you could see why. Because
when did ausploitation start, though?
I'm saying 1970.
Oh, okay.
The early 1970s. So if this is 1971, it probably started with this. This is the first big thing, right? Now, you can see why ausploitation sort of kicked off from here. Because if you're living in the United States, you only know a little bit about what Australia is. And you see this movie come through to your cinemas like the first Australian film in the US. It probably wasn't the first Australian
they're
film.
used to this summer. Yeah. You go, this summer in the yabba. That's what you go like, you hear that for the first time as a foreign person. You want to know what's going on in the yabba. You
hear the word the yabba and you're thinking, I don't understand what the man said.
I don't know how to spell it either.
I don't know how to spell it. And two, like, is this an animal? Is it a place? Is it a person? Is there an Australian man called Yabba?
I was this for anyone who's invested in Wake in Fright, the movie. There is no place called Bundan Yabba.
No,
which is unfortunate because I was looking for it. I was going, I want to go to this place.
I mean, it is so from my readings, which is very limited because I don't read. I just listen to audiobook.
Yeah,
but this was based on Broken Hill, which is in New South Wales. And is a country town.
It's close to the border to South Australia.
It is close to the border to South Australia, which is why there's some South Australian references in this movie.
Is there?
And we'll get into that.
Oh, dude, I didn't see any South Australian references.
That's because
was it just like West Ends?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's
it was. There's two. So we'll get into like beers later because this movie is about beers. I mean, this movie is about drinking in the heat, and that is what Australia is about drinking in the heat.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that, and we won't get into whether that's a good or a bad thing, but we'll just get into the fact that there's a lot of drinking in this movie. But yes, so it was based off Broken Hill, so it's not a real place, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah,
because
it's at the start it said there's no any correlation to any real places or people. Is false.
It's false. It's purely by happy chance,
except for Donald Pleasant.
Donald Pleasant,
because man's real,
and he's pleasant. In this movie, he's not so pleasant, but in other places, he could be pleasant. But yeah, it is. You also don't want to be the country town that like heads go there drinking, lose their money, and try to commit suicide.
Yeah, because they can't leave.
Right. Because that's what this movie is about. So imagine like you're like, yeah, this would be good for our tourism. The Yabba, you'll never leave.
Don't worry, it's not a real place.
So Martin Scorsese's very own.
Yeah.
He watched this movie and he said, this made my jaw drop.
This is what I intended.
This is what he intended. After that, Scorsese started making movies that he intended because his jaw dropped. There's a whole bunch of American directors, like famous people, like the Quentin Tarantinos of the world who love this movie because for them, this is what, I guess this is their first glimpse of what Australia is, or was their first glimpse of what Australia is.
It is a pretty, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of old movies, but I haven't seen a lot of movies that are like this. And I also haven't seen that many Australian movies that are based in the Outback. But the Outback is, even from the first shot where they're in Tabunda, which is where Jack Grant, I was about to say Hugh Grant.
Yeah. Jack, a.k.a. John.
Jack, a.k.a. John. John Jack Grant is teaching school there's a schoolhouse, which is just basically a tin shed on one side of the railway tracks, and there's the hotel and bar on the other side of the railway tracks, and it just pans around the camera, and that's it.
That's it.
You just see nothing. And there's just desert, a train, and 2 buildings. And I think that's an absolute top tier setting for a movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, the Yabba is a top tier setting as well.
Yeah.
Little country town where just everyone, you can tell that the great thing about this movie is that from the start, you can tell it's hot. Not only just from the fact that like you go out there and it's quite arid in the spaces that they are, but everyone is sweating.
Everyone is sweating.
Everyone is in
and that's
there.
not fake. That's not prop sweat.
That's real sweat.
That'd be real sweat.
Because there's a lot of people in those pubs and everyone is drinking beers because when it's hot, heads will drink alcohol, not because like, oh, I want to get drunk, but because like this is the thing that's going to cool me down right now. And that is what happens in this movie. I think you were saying like you haven't seen many movies like this. And I think when, you know, movies from this era, and maybe we'll, when we do Ausploitation August, we'll see that that these movies are all similar to this. But it's meandering. There's times in this movie where it would just stay in one space for a very long time and show you everything. Like, you know, I guess in a movie nowadays, they'll do a pan of the pub and you'll be like, okay, this is what's going on in the pub. In this movie, it like goes through every single individual at the pub, like asks them their life story, then goes to the next guy.
It's like that scene in Spider-Man 1 where they ask all the New Yorkers about Spider-Man. They're there, hey, what do you think of the pub? Yeah, it's the heat.
Yeah.
Can't leave the yabba. It's hot. Tinnies. And then it goes to the next person and they just say exactly the same thing.
No, you said tinnies.
Tinnies.
Yeah. Which is cans.
Yeah.
Like cans of beer.
Cans of beer, yeah.
Because like, you know, there's other things in exploitation films that you could have messed up with tinnies. But we won't get into that because they weren't in this movie. But yeah, tinnies, like people drinking tinnies, people drinking out of the dude, those scenes where they've got the pints and they're just shooting the beer in there.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, man. Because that's just showing the output of this place. Like the Yabba can drink. If you're in the Yabba, you're not drinking, you're not in the Yabba.
You're not in the Yabba. And if you're not in the Yabba, like you're in the ground.
Because there's no way out.
Because there's no way out.
Yeah. So there's a lot of this movie in singular spaces, and I think that is a really cool aspect of not only this movie but also, and again, I haven't seen many movies of the era either, but of movies of that era where they use a very different method of setting the scene.
Yeah,
they use a very different method. You know, the whatever, the drapes aren't blue. They'll just go up to a man and say, like, hey, like, if you want to get out of the Yabba, you got to shoot yourself. And then you realise, like, it's not a happy place.
Go ahead and say, man, you know, this was a movie where I watched this last night.
Me too.
I watched this last night. It was fairly late, and I don't go to bed late. I don't go to bed late, so I don't want to. And I realised this is like a 2-hour movie almost.
It is, yeah.
And I was thinking, all right, you know what? I actually want to play like Nintendo Switch things. Maybe I'll just put the movie on. I'll just watch this. I'll just play Nintendo. And I started watching the movie. I thought, well, I might as well watch the start bit, but I couldn't start watching the movie.
The thing about this movie is I tried to do the same thing. I was playing PS1 games last night.
You can't leave the Yabba. You can't leave your eyes off the screen.
You can't, because I think similarly to, not as, and I don't think it was as profound or as, like they didn't try to make it a focus as much as the Razorback did. But it is a very scary movie in the fact that this guy just falls into all these scenarios.
And you just don't know what's going to happen.
And in these scenarios, the people that come are not, like, they're just regular people.
Yeah.
You could meet the ones in Razorback, they're exaggerations.
But that was post Mad Max.
That's post Mad Max. But the people that are in this movie are people that you could genuinely meet.
Yeah.
There's a scene where like they go roo hunting and then they come back and they just start brawling out front. And it starts off as like, we're just wrestling each other for fun. And then someone gets hurt and then they start actually fighting.
Yeah.
If you've been to the Yabba or like just down to your local pub, you've seen that.
That's right. None of this is actually outlandish.
No. And that's the scary thing about it, which is like you're always on edge during this movie, I felt.
I also think compared to Razorback, this one, you know, the I guess the storyline wasn't, it wasn't, you know, genre defining.
Yeah.
It was just, man's finishes up, he's on the holidays, he wants to go to Sydney, he loses all his money, he is just like, he's in the Yabba. And that's it. Whereas Razorback, I felt it was just difficult to follow all of the time. Mans was making decisions, I was going, this is just dumb.
Yeah.
But this is just, Mans is at the whim of the yabba.
100%. And he is making decisions which are not the best decisions, but once he makes that one wrong decision, and it's when so there's this game called 2-Up, for those who don't know. It's essentially like a heads and tails game that was played by the Diggers, by the Anzacs.
I was trying to work out what the rules were. Because basically you look at it and there's just people in a circle essentially crowded around, throwing money down, and someone's going, who got heads? I got heads, you got tails. All right. And they just throw money around, and then it goes heads or tails, and then just people pick up money.
Yeah, yeah. And the cool thing about this movie, and the reason why they're just meandering in one space for a whole time, is by the end of 2-Up, you're like, I could play 2-Up right now. Like, I know all the rules.
I was thinking, I can go there. I can just go there. I can have a bunch of like $20 bills in my hand, scrunched up, and just throw them at a dude and say, I got heads. And he'll say, I got tails.
I got you on tails.
And then one of us is going to lose.
That's exactly right. And you know exactly how to play that game by the end of this. At the start, I was like the same, and you're like John Grant in this situation. You're like, what the hell is 2-Up? What do you do here? And then by the end of it, you're like, dude, I'm 2-Up master. I'm going to start throwing it. Like fair play or fair game. Whatever.
Fair game. Fair game. Jeez.
You
were, like you said, meandering. That was on that for a while,
a long
but
time.
I was in it.
Yeah.
I was looking at it. I was going, I want to see what happens next.
And when he wins that first lot of money and he runs out of there, you're like, thank goodness. Thank God this guy has chosen the right choice. And then he's just sitting there and he's like, I could make this 400 into 1,000 and I'm out of teaching forever.
He's not Australian.
He's not Australian. He's British.
No, he's British.
Yeah. There's actually multiple British actors in this movie. Doc is one of them.
Oh, is it?
Donald
Yeah,
Pleasence.
he sounded a bit like he had a lingering British accent.
Yeah. And the daughter of that man that he meets at the pub.
That was the other one I was going to say, Jeanette.
So the 2-Up scene, I thought that 2-Up scene was fantastic because he just stayed there. And you just felt like you were there. But also, as I said, by the end of it, you felt like I could walk into the Yabba right now, never leave, but I could play 2-Up for the rest of my life.
Jeez. I think that's one of the things that makes this movie so good. And yeah, I do think it's actually a good movie. I didn't like the Roo scene. They were too much. They were way too much.
You saw the thing at the very end?
Yeah. So I've got this here. So it shows people, Roo hunting.
And not just like this is, you shoot from one angle and then you get a trained Roo to just fall on the ground.
Yeah,
or you have a fake Roo just on the ground. They're physically fighting Roos.
And they're also like hand-to-hand combat.
That's what I'm saying. Physically like hitting them with hats, pulling on their tails. It was absolute madness. So, and I mixed this up with Razorback last week.
Yeah, you thought it was that.
I thought it was that, but this is what it is.
But this is what? So this is the producer's note at the end of the movie. It says, the hunting scenes depicted in this film were taken during an actual kangaroo hunt by professional licensed hunters. For this reason, and because of the survival of the Australian kangaroo is seriously threatened, these scenes were shown uncut after consultation with the leading animal welfare organisations in Australia and the United Kingdom. That means absolutely nothing.
No.
Because it's saying, hey, this was taken in a professional, like these heads were professional, fine. For this reason, right, because these people were,
I did everything
because it's an actual correct kangaroo hunt, and the survival of kangaroos is threatened, these scenes were shown uncut.
Yeah. There's no reason.
No,
they just realised like we're going to be in a lot of trouble if we just show this without any reasoning for it. So they just made up a reason and saying like, "Hey, we talked to some heads. Like, it's all done by professionals. It's by the book. When we pulled on the kangaroo's tail, look, that was actually it's a method used in hunting. Like that's where they were at that point.
But it doesn't even.
There's no sense there.
Pass the blame on to anyone. It's saying like, hey, this is just what happened. Roos are threatened. But we checked with the welfare people, animal welfare.
Like we killed him, but we checked with the welfare league.
There was some money that exchanged hands. There was some tinnies that got exchanged hands for sure.
You sent a couple West Ends, and those West End cans look good.
They were cool cans.
But this, that scene, one, is hard to watch, and two, there's just no reason for it. From there, they've told you at the very end of the movie, they say, there's no reason for this, but we did it.
We did it.
Nevertheless, we did it.
And we exploited.
We exploited, and look, you look at Roos now, and they're thriving. Like they're thriving too much.
They're thriving too much. But, regardless.
Regardless, you don't grab a Roo by the tail and start fighting it with your hat.
Yeah.
That scene was wild. And again, this is you show this to foreign audiences.
And this was it was a long time. As in, there were a lot of minutes of Roo Hunt.
Oh, dude, if you skip through that, right, you're skipping. You're not skipping through it and it's done.
Yeah.
You're not putting 15 seconds later and it's done. You have to sit in that for a while. And again, this is the horrors of it. And you see the horrors like play on that man's face, on John Grant's face when he finishes that hunt. You see the pain on his face. This actor is just. I know he's not Australian. He's an English man, but he was a good actor.
Hugh Jack Grant.
Hugh Jack Grant.
Hugh Jack John Grant.
John Grant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack or John.
I thought the acting in this movie was pretty.
From everyone was tremendous.
Yeah.
And part of it was just that. I mean, like we said earlier, it's just they feel like real people.
Yeah.
They don't feel like exaggerations. This is what an Aussie looks like. It's not like when Quentin Tarantino acted as an Aussie in Django Unchained. This is like, these are heads that they might have just got from the pub. And in fact, the police officer,
Yeah.
he demanded that they actually drink beers during their scenes.
Was he an actor or was he just police? He was just a regular Joe.
I don't know if he was a regular Joe or not, but he demanded that they drink beers during their scenes. And the director tried to put non-alcoholic beers in there. And he took a sip and he said, look, you do the directing, I'll do the drinking. And I have
to say, he was a good actor. He was a good character. There were really interesting characters in this movie.
Yeah.
So he's the police officer Jock.
Yeah.
So he's not a regular Joe. He's a regular Jock. And he's the first dude that comes up to Hugh Jack John Grant in the pub.
He introduced him
because he's there. Because Grant is there. He's only got one night in the Yabba because then he's going to Sydney, and he goes to the pub, and Jock just goes up to him and goes, "Who are you? Like, who are you? How you going? Here's a beer." And the best part about that was Jock just downed the beer, and I don't know, he drank that fast. And he goes, "All right, another beer." And Grant's looking at him going, "Yep." And he just keeps looking at him because he needs him to finish that beer. And every time, another beer. And then Grant knows like he's got to drink that beer.
And it's a scary that again, this is the eeriness of it, but this is the reality of it. You have a head that will come up to you. Maybe they know you, maybe they don't. And they'll be like, "Mate, can I get you a beer?" And you'll be like, "Oh yeah, no, look, I'm fine." Like, "No, I'll ask you."
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, "All right, look, man, you can get me a beer." And then you might have like 6 beers with that guy. And he might be your mate, but still like you're demanded into drinking that beer and you know that could lead anywhere.
And for we're not from country towns. I haven't been to many country towns. I haven't been to pubs in country towns like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is also like many years ago.
I know, but I'm saying we are removed from the reality of what this could have been. This might have been whatever. This is scary to me. Because I'm seeing a guy going, yeah, you have another beer? And I'm thinking, oh, like this is just going to go downhill. And like it might not be broken hill, but it's gone downhill.
It's and like something will get broken when you go downhill like that. One of the, in my travels, and we'll talk about that on the Patreon, in my travels, I've been to pubs and no one's ever come up to me and been like, "I'm getting you a beer."
Yeah, because in this geopolitical climate,
you can't do that.
You can't do it.
No.
Because beers are like $12 now.
It's true. You're not just popping like pennies for beers anymore. While we're talking about beers, the West End beer. West End is the best end. It's an absolute icon of South Australia. Unfortunately, no longer made in South Australia anymore, which is a bit of a shame. But features heavily in this movie. That's one of the beers that they drink. And let me tell you, when I saw that, I was like, "This is fantastic." I was looking around, making sure that where was this filmed. I want to see if it's filmed.
I thought you were saying I was looking around for a West End.
I mean, I looked around for a West End. I found one. I drank it. But also, one of the signs and this is like again local stuff. One of the signs when they're having that fight after the Roo hunt, and there's a sign on the door which is Southwark beer. Now the Southwark Hotel is just down the road here. We're just right close to the Southwark Hotel, and this is a like in South Australia beer.
Yeah,
which is like you see that, and I know that this is an Australian film, so it's not like it's not that far fetched that a South Australian beers in an Australian film. But I saw that and I was like, this is fantastic.
Like, I've never heard of Southwark before.
Southwark, dude, you've driven past Southwark, man.
Yeah, okay, but like I said, I don't drink beers. I don't go into pubs. I don't know West End because they had the big brewery. They had breweries.
Yeah. The Southwark, we'll go there one time and you enjoy it because they do a good snitty there as well. The Southwark Hotel, and they do music on a Thursday. And like you go there and you do open mic music.
That was one thing that was funny. When he went to the hotel in the Yabba, there was no music playing at the start.
And then it was just Christmas music.
Yeah, and then there was a dude saying, I don't know, Jingle All the Way or something.
Yeah, which is funny. It's funny when because like Australian movies, we don't think about. There's no other than tinsel and trees. You're not really thinking about Christmas when you're just out in the desert.
Yeah,
but it's Christmas time in this movie. It was Christmas Eve, I believe, when they were in the Yabba just then. So they're just singing like Jingle All the Way, which is just hilarious to me because like you could tell me it was Christmas, you could tell me it wasn't Christmas, I'd believe you.
Yeah.
Either way.
Who was the person in the movie that said to Grant, I'm just going to call him Grant because...
I mean, his name is either John or Jack because he gets called both of them.
Yeah. Someone says, if people find it hard to leave or something, was that the police officer, Jock? Or was that the cab driver that was taking him from the train station to his hotel?
The police officer says to him that there's a lot of suicides in the Yabba.
Oh, yes.
We think it's the heat.
The heat, jeez, everything's the heat.
But you just can't leave. And I mean, like, it would be great to watch this movie with someone who currently lives in the country and maybe someone who has lived in the country and has left.
Yeah.
And especially someone who lived in the country during the 70s,
And someone who lived in the Yabba.
I mean, someone who lived in the fictitious Yabba. Yeah. And like every time I hear Yabba, I think Yowie, and like that's a movie that we'll make.
And Wowee.
But it would be interesting to see because there's obviously a lot of elements of how can I get out of a country town and move to the city? How can I leave this life and move to the city? Because no one leaves.
No, and that's when Grant makes the joke to the police officer, Jock, that's why they have suicides because like then they can leave.
Yeah.
Which is obviously morbid, but
also foreshadowing.
That's
for this
foreshadowing.
movie.
Yeah, see, there's like little bits in the movie like that.
Dude, I'm telling you, this is a good movie, man.
So I'm going to talk about the Doctor.
Talk about Donald Pleasance.
He was my favorite character in this movie.
Donald Pleasance, one of the best actors of all time, underrated because, like, underrated within our generation because we don't go back and watch movies about the Yabba very often.
Except for, when Patreon members suggested, and thank you, David, for suggesting this because this is...
I mean, David suggested the ausploitation films. Like he sent us through a couple of options, and we watched Razorback first, which wasn't one of the options. But then we watched Wake and Fright. We've realised like it's ausploitation August.
Bro, don't worry about the MCU. I'm not interested.
No, dude.
I'm just interested in going back and watching ausploitation films.
Dude, it's the OzCU.
And hopefully there's not... I mean, I know there's going to be more stuff that
I'm telling you, it gets wild.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not... But just...
And I mean, we might have to watch Patrick. Patrick's top tier, though.
I don't want to... Anyway. So the first time we see the Doctor is they're in the two-up. Jock takes Grant to the two-up place, and it's just at the back of a steakhouse, basically. Because Grant's going, I can't drink anymore. I need something to eat. So he takes him to get a steak. Yeah. And Jock just leaves him. He's going, I'm going back to find some other dude to buy him a beer or something. And this doctor's there. He's like writing something down. He's saying, hey, you going to eat those eggs? I'm going to have them.
Yeah.
And he says to him, over in here, so they were talking about the Yabba or whatever, and Grant starts saying about how, like, oh, yeah, and us idiots that think that they're happy or whatever, some stuff about, like, hey, I'm high society. And the doctor says, discontentment is the luxury of the well-to-do. If you got to live here, you might as well like it.
And like,
and I heard that and I was going, like, he's not leaving the Yabba.
No,
he's not leaving the Yabba.
You get hit with some like philosophical statements like that by a man in a pub.
There's just little bits here in the movie where you just go, this is a bit unsettling.
It's foreshadowing something that's unsettling. And I mean, just every moment of this movie is unsettling because you know what his goal is.
Yeah.
He's a buttoned up man trying to get to Sydney.
He needs to get to Sydney to go see his girlfriend, and then he ideally he wants to go move back to England and be a journalist or whatever.
Yeah. He wants to get that $1,000 so he can get out of being a teacher. Because apparently you have like $1,000 bond.
Yeah, you have to take $1,000 and they can put you wherever you want or something.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, it is as soon as that light hits his eyes when he's playing two up that just everything goes downhill. But there was signs that it was going to go downhill early.
There were signs, that's right.
As soon as he hit the Yabba, man, As soon as he hit the yabba. And I mean, it just sort of continues like that throughout. There's little things. And I guess the three characters that you meet along the way, which are the ones that you can tell things are going to go wrong for him. First, the police officer, then Donald Pleasance, the doc, and then this old man at the pub.
Was he Irish or something?
I don't know. He looked Irish.
He kind of, I don't know, his accent sounded not Australian, but also Australian.
Yeah. Also, what was that game they were playing with the things in the middle of the
the pool table. Yeah.
That was cool.
It looked like croquet.
Yeah.
But on a pool table.
Yeah, dude. I want to play that game.
There was multiple holes. There were like...
If an old Irish man that looks like a leprechaun buys me a beer and says like, no, I'm buying you a beer.
That was
gets
wild.
Angry.
2 beers, 2 tomato juices.
A beer with tomato juice does not sound good. He pours it in there as well.
That's what I mean. He's just there. He's then just drinking with this other guy.
Maybe that's like antioxidants or something in there to try to
I don't know, man.
Everyone's got their own method of like, oh yeah, look, I'll drink 16 beers, but I'll have 3 shots of lemon juice before I go.
And that'll even me out. Then I can drive. No, you can't drive.
You shouldn't drive, man. No one at the Yabba should be driving.
No, but everyone would be driving.
Well, I mean, that guy shortly after buying a couple of beers with tomato juice drives home.
But yeah, then there's a whole part of him being with this dude. What was his name? Like Ian or something?
Yeah. Ian McShane, probably.
Whatever his...
That's an actor's name.
Anyway, whatever his name is, he goes back to his house. They're drinking. There's his daughter's there. His daughter's just like looking mad the whole time.
Yeah, his daughter's been through a lot.
Yeah.
Like of things, and the community. But we then come across the 2 Roo hunters, and I've never seen a bigger Australian man in my life.
As in
the 2 Roo hunters that come in later. This is just before the Roo hunting scene. It's where he meets up with all those guys.
Yeah, as in you're saying like they're big, like they they took their pump cover off. They're big.
Like, do you see that the guy that walks through and he's like his hands on the roof?
Yeah,
that guy's huge. That's like one of the biggest. Here's the thing as well. That's one of the biggest men I've seen on screen that isn't on the Hollywood superhero diet.
They're not on the diet. They're not on the TRTs.
They're not on the TRTs. Like they didn't meet up with Trembutylane and get some shots in. They just are big because that's where they're built, and they'll drink like 18 beers and make a necklace out of the top.
This movie is just going from place to place, drinking and getting into more trouble.
Yeah, and it's all around drinking.
It's wild. And then, I mean, what happened after they do the Roo hunting? Then he tries to dip. He leaves the hotel that he's staying in. Where does he go after that?
Well, no. So he passes out, doesn't he?
Yeah, after and he wakes up in the doctor's.
He wakes up with the
doctor's house.
Like there was things potentially going on with Doc.
Yeah. Was that after? No, that wasn't after the Roo hunting, was it?
They're all at the pub. They're fighting, and then he passes. He falls back. He passes out.
Oh yeah.
And then he goes back to Doc's house, and they're pouring beers on each other.
Pouring beers,
and he's just drinking more beers.
Testicles.
Yeah, how they're like as good as oysters. Jeez. And then he then leaves. He tries to get out of there with $0 in his pocket.
Yeah. He's got $1.
He's got $1. That's right, and a rifle. And he gets into
He hitchhikes,
dude, and that's a scary scene, dude. When I saw this scene, so he's hitchhiking and he's slowly making his way to Sydney, very slowly getting there.
He's shooting rabbits and he's eating rabbits.
Like just eating rabbits on the road.
Yeah, he's making a campfire. He's eating rabbits.
And where did this come from in this man's life? he just was, you stay a couple of days in the Yabba, you start eating rabbits. He then comes across this semi trailer.
And it says Sydney construct whatever. And
he says to him, "Mate, you going to the city?" And he says, "Yeah, I could take you into the city. It's going to cost you." And then he gives him his rifle to go into the city. And he's in the back of this truck. And the guy goes, "Yeah, we're here. We're at the city." And then he gets out there and he's back in the Yabba. And dude, when that happened, I was like, this is unreal. This is like 1408 before 1408. You seen that movie?
Nah, bro.
Like man leaves the hotel, but he's still in the hotel.
Oh, they were in the antique store and then out there antique store.
100%. That was a wild scene. And he just gives him his rifle back and he says, "Look, at least you don't need this. At least you don't need to give me this." And then that's when he goes and attempts to commit suicide. Yeah,
he goes back to the doc's house and he's there in the corner, like ready to shoot him.
Yeah,
which I don't know. He's getting flashbacks of all this stuff
and stuff that didn't happen.
Yeah,
when they're playing two up and the things fall into the doctor's eyes.
Yeah,
That was crazy, man. Fantastic movie.
Jeez.
I mean, like, you know, this got 7.6 out of 10 on the IMDb. Like, I could give that a 7.6 out of 10 on the IMDb.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you want to go into the country and drink beers.
It does not make me want to go to the country and drink beers. It just makes me interested to watch more of these kind of movies.
Yeah, I'm very excited, man. I'm very excited to find the yabba or something close to the yabba, and just watch more ausploitation. And that's what we'll probably do for a little bit.
That's what we'll probably do. This, and it doesn't finish with him. It finishes him, which is wild. It finishes with him shooting himself in the head with the rifle. And then I thought that was the end of the movie. And it's like he left the yabba or something like that.
Yeah.
But he wakes up in hospital with a is this bad for you? Can you still hear this?
What am I hearing?
The audio. Yeah, I think my headphones are like doing things that anyway. That's a me issue. That's not like
that's not anyone else's issue.
Anyone else's issue. I'm just making it worse for everyone by drawing attention.
But
But
35 minutes in.
he ends up in the hospital. I thought when it was going like the light, and it's the doctor, and he's like an actual doctor,
Oh, yeah.
and he's going like, son, you've been asleep for 54 hours.
And he's back just in his room, like, drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, when you see the doctor at the end with the suit on and they're just sitting there like you've escaped the yabba now, and the guy, what's his name's got a smile on his face. But the thing is, he never escaped, man. He went back to Tabunda. And he's just stuck there.
Honestly, when I saw that he woke up and I was thinking, oh man, they should have just ended before. This is not going to be a good ending. This was a good ending.
If he went to Sydney, I would have thought this wasn't a good ending.
Yeah.
But he goes back to Tabunda and he's like, if I have to get to Sydney, I have to go through the yabba. And I can't do that.
I can't go through the yabba.
And he's just back to where he was because there's no escape. And that's I mean, look. I mean, listen.
This is worth a watch.
This is worth a watch. I'm giving this like, you know, anywhere between a 7 and an 8. It's not for everybody.
It's not for everyone.
And like, if you love beers, like, you'll love this movie. So I'll give it a 9 if you love beers.
And if you dislike animal violence, like, don't watch this movie.
Yeah, it's not.
Or skip the kangaroos. Jeez, that was rough. That was real rough. Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you something right here, right now, Vincent.
Tell me.
That was Wake and Fright, and this being the back catalogue.
Wake in Fright. Wake in Fright. See you in the yabba.